Cheers and salutations. Welcome one and all to Chicago Reacts. We got ourselves a fun video to check out. Before we get started, please be sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe, all you hip cool cats. That way you're made aware we upload new content upon our YouTube channel. And today, we will return back to the world's most one-sided fist fight caught on films. Star Wars versus Warhammer 40K. Shout out to a fan was too much time. We've actually been getting some feedback from the original content creator in some of the videos that we reacted to. So as a favor for me, folks, please support the original content creator. It's the right thing to do. A fan was too much time. The original link is in the description box below. We do this for all the videos that we react to here for Chicago Reacts because it's the right thing to do. And I know all of you will do the right thing as well. I also want to give a little side note. If you haven't seen the unboxing video yet of Lauren, who's been doing a great job with his channel, revealing our silver play button, hey, give it a view. It's pretty awesome. And it's thanks to all of you. And we love you for it. From the bottom of our hearts, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. But saying thank you is not enough. So without further ado, grab yourself a tasty snack and a tasty beverage. We return to Star Wars vs. Warhammer 40K, Episode 7, The Crimson Razors. Let's go ahead and check it out. In 3, 2, 1. Glorious.
Humanity has always looked skyward for its true path. We stood at the edge of destruction and would have fallen if not for the might of the God Emperor and his angels of death. Forged in blood,
Hell's Reach.
tempered in battle,
Hell's Reach.
we are the living weapons of humanity. The Space Marines.
Glorious. Glorious. Oh, the innocent eras. Warhammer 40K animations. Before the dark times. Before the copyright. Before evil reigned supreme.
Davik Thune had waited for weeks. He had shut down his Gellerfields when they had impeded his path, and the Emperor, despite the claims of the now dead navigators, had protected them better than those ancient relics ever could. His men had braced, prepared to be overwhelmed by the endless tide of damnation which owned the warp and all who served it, and yet no such onrush of daemons came. Things came, of that he was certain, but they were not the vicious entities his men had been ready to die fighting. A black and white fog had blown into his ship, moving through walls and bodies without pause or impediment. With this strange mist came souls, but not many. Some were Xenos, some were human, all were dazed, drifting, and utterly uninterested in them. He would have had his librarians capture some of them for interrogation, but they were too busy steering his ships in place of the navigators. Those heretics had claimed the Emperor was dead. They had claimed his light was vanished. And yet, what else could this be but the Emperor's own Aegis? They had died traitors' deaths, and the survival of his fleet in the naked warp was all the vindication he needed in order to know for certain that he had been right. And he had been...
You know, Warhammer 40K original art, and even if this is commissioned, all of it is absolutely beautiful, and it does set a tone of what could happen to humanity should we ever reach the stars. You know, I do, you know, when I was younger, I used to believe in like the Gene Roddenberry vision of the future where all the problems are solved. I'm talking about the old school Star Trek. I'm not talking about the new stuff. All right, well, let's keep the new stuff out of here. I'm talking about, stuff that you saw on TV back in the day, the original series, The Next Generation, Deep Space Nine, Voyager, Enterprise. I'm talking about those shows where there was a bit of an idealism, but in all reality, knowing human nature and how we like to make the same mistakes over and over again, I fear we'll see much more of the same should we ever become a spacefaring people. I want to hold out for hope, but we all know the 40K feeling. Hope is the first pass to disappointment.
Been right for weeks. He had been waiting, watching, and at long last they had arrived. He did not know if this galaxy was even their own, but he knew that coming here would tell him for certain. He had been here, after all, during the fall. He had watched, wounded and from orbit, when Cadia was finally brought to its knees. Davik had watched as Abaddon, 16 times damned traitor, had hurled the ruins of his greatest weapon at Cadia, discarding the power and knowledge of an entire Blackstone fortress and several of his own men and ships to steal a bitter victory from the clutches of honorable defeat.
Whenever anyone asks, where is Cadia on a map? I point to my heart. Cadia stands. The planet broke before the god did. We held. Abaddon, justice is coming your way.
Like a petulant child sweeping the board of a game he simply was not going to win, Abaddon bled himself, bled his Black Legion, and did what no one else had ever done, what no one else would ever do again. Thus was how complete the shattering of Cadia had been. It was a vision he knew more intimately and painfully than any other, and he had worked hard in the time since then to overcome the defeat they had all
suffered. There's Creed. And it looks like Belisarius Belisarius Call.
Suffered there that day. Davik had become the chapter master of the Crimson Razors, had changed from being a detractor of the controversial reforms of his forebears to being their foremost champion. All of this he had done with the thought of Cadia's shattered stellar body trapped forever in his mind's eye. It was an image he knew better than any other, and it was not
Saint Celestine,
the image that greeted his hungering eyes as his battle barge, the Black Crimson, emerged from the warp. What he saw instead of the haunted ruin of Cadia and its sister planets was interesting but unwelcomed. This confirmed his suspicions. They were no longer within the bounds of the Milky Way galaxy. Their desperate dash through the thinnest tendril of the Cicatrix Maledictum had somehow cast them to an entirely different galaxy, or perhaps even a parallel universe. He cared not for which one was the case. Before him lay a system with 2 heavily populated Xenos worlds, clearly at war. The most heavily populated planet was an enormous urban world, clearly some kind of hive world for the Xenos who lived there. It was surrounded by a fleet of escort ships shaped like white and red arrowheads. Opposing the arrows was a more varied fleet of cigar and oval-shaped ships. They seemed...
Oh, so I forgot this. So for those who don't know, I did, a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away, did see the first video clips of this coming out, but due to work and other personal things, yes, I know, life, dreadful. I don't even have time to play video games anymore. Well, I kind of forgot that I guess this part of the fleet showed up somewhere else as the rest of the fleet was departing in another location.
To be in a standoff, neither side fighting the other, their presences holding hostilities in check. But around the less populated planet, there seemed to be much more occurring. Many ships gathered around this sphere as well, but they seemed to be exchanging fire, contesting the space and making Davik certain of the conflict they were engaged in. Already they had dispatched wings of Fury attack craft and Thunderhawks to scout the area and retrieve more data. This system was where the Cadia system was meant to be. If for no other reason than to honor its memory, Davik would purge it, and make it a mirror of the devastation that belonged there.
Yo.
My lord, we are receiving troubling information from the scouts, said an officer near him, his head and face heavily augmented to allow the receiving and transmission of broadcast communications. Speak it, Davik growled. Yes, it would appear that one of the armies is composed predominantly of humans, the officer said. At this, Davik perked up. Humans? Then perhaps there was a purpose to being in this galaxy after all. But his ponderings on such possibilities were cut violently short when his officer concluded his report. And the other side appears to be making rampant use of abominable intelligence. Davik rose from his command throne, his ancient armor whining as he rushed to the hololithic display. How much? He asked. Like the Tau, like the Eldar. The officer shook his head, eyes wide. No, my lord. They are all machines. No biologicals found amongst them, he reported. Necrons. The chapter master of the Crimson Razors swore. It will be them that we attack first. Leave no Xenos machines or constructs standing. Tell the Astra Militarum to prepare themselves. We are taking the planet they are fighting over. We are cleaning it of all Xenos and all AI. Then we shall move to the next planet. If the humans capitulate, then perhaps there will be a place for them. If not, then let us remember that the fate of heretics, traitors, Xenos, and abominations are all one and the same.
Correct. Absolutely. I think y'all know what side I'm on.
It was dark and red, the lights only dimly illuminating the cylindrical interior of the boarding torpedo. The Marines were mag-locked into place, standing in 2 rows. The smell of scented ashes, sweet and strong, filled the recycled air. Many of the brothers whispered hymns of wrath. Most said nothing, eyes still and straight ahead, thumbs tracing the triggers of chain swords, the hilts of combat knives, the internal cushioned suspension harnesses of their power fists. Brother Arachnus clutched his bolter tightly, both hands. In spite of their namesake, the Crimson Razors had always been true sons of Dorn, truer even than the Black Templars. And while the original fists had been
Hey. Say that to a Black Templar's face. I'm gonna smack you around. Say that to the Crimson Fist. Say that to the Imperial Fist.
no slouches with chain swords, it was with the bolter that the Emperor's vengeance was to be delivered. And, in spite of the many changes that had taken the chapter in recent centuries, changes that had made them more and more resemble the aforementioned Templars, all of the old guard, all of the veterans, all of the true crusaders still executed Dorn's fury with precise, professional shots from one of the small, thundering dragons the tech priests crafted for them, bolters such as the one he now carried in his hands. She was an ancient thing, built thousands of years ago, built to kill the mechanical monstrosities of the Terrafont Entente. It had done its job well.
Whoa.
The Terrafont and all of their constituent races were
Ugh.
utterly extinguished.
Ew. Looked like Cenobites.
He could almost feel its machine spirit stirring, waking from centuries of sleep in the hopes of doing once more what it had done so proudly before. Soon, he cooed to it. The Black Templars did have one thing right. Above nearly all other chapters within and without the Legion of Dorn, they did stand apart in at least one crucial way. The Emperor was not simply the greatest scion of humanity, not only the mightiest champion of mankind, its ruler, its emperor. No. He who now sat the Golden Throne was not merely the most formidable psyker to ever live. The Emperor of mankind was a god, a true god, the only god. And in the bestowing of that truth through their actions at the Ascension Wars so many centuries ago, they had earned some grudging respect from Arachnus. But their obsession with swords, with blade work, it had infected the younger Marines in his chapter, and so Brother Arachnus would show them, would lead by example, would demonstrate with lethal zeal and unerring precision why the old way was the best way. The drill tube hit, and in milliseconds breached the outer layer of the ship they were boarding. The front end blew open and his fire team of 5 spilled out into the space. It was over in instants. Laughably easy. They had crashed through the
I bet those droids were like, what? I don't know. That's a terrible way to do the droid voice, but I think we've all seen Clone Wars and how the droids were very cartoonish.
transparent steel of the bridge of the ship, and inside were several beings. Most of these beings were machines, the hated AI the Emperor himself had banned from existence. But the exception among them was only marginally less abhorrent. A standing, spider-like Xeno, covered in cybernetic augmentations composed of its profane alien
Admiral Trench. You're out of your element here, buddy.
technology. Still, it was the lesser of the priorities, something all realized as they stormed the machines. And yet, despite the blinding speed of their movements, the faultless zeal and fury of their charge, the devastating power of the blows they sought to unleash upon these mechanical abominations, not a one would have the chance. Brother Arachnus' bolter let loose a hail of fire, each projectile coughed out by the thundering weapon carrying itself on a micro-engine, whipping through space with a velocity which tore the air itself. Reticles had appeared in his helmet display, highlighting each enemy with unerring accuracy, showing their bodies, the density of the cover that stood between he and they, if any, and singled out projected areas of weaknesses, heads, hearts, and groins. He didn't even remotely need them. Nearly 200 years of constant, escalating training and war against foes whose numbers knew no end, and whose forms knew no boundary of reason or dignity, had honed his mind into a killing cogitator which could far outstrip anything forged by pathetically artificial means. He was the blood of Dorn. He was the rage of man. But he did not shout this, not with his mouth. He shouted it with his bolter as it rained micro-missile-like death upon all false life in the room, each round finding a head, a chassis, or landing close enough to the target to destroy their bodies from the proximity of the detonating bolt rounds.
It's got to be like in that bad. I could see the image being played out in my head. I mean, here's the thing. Shout out to a fan with Too Much Time who was able to narrate the story. And I'm going to speak for myself, but I could see the battle taking place on the bridge and the Space Marines just going through the droids like a hot knife through butter. It's quite a sight to see. I think we've all seen our fair share of Warhammer 40K content, animation, video games, and Star Wars included. And knowing the battle droids from the Clone War era, especially the basic B1 battle droid, they're the betas. Beta! I mean, they're going to be utterly destroyed. I only can imagine the look of Admiral Trench. He's probably thinking, who are these people? They're humans, but they're not. They're giants. And that's the thing about Space Marines. In case some of you don't know, like some of them stand at least maybe 7 feet tall. Space Marines are, and not to mention you have that whole body armor. These guys were Space Marines. You know, they would be very intimidating. And I know I mentioned in a previous video, if you were in the Warhammer 40K universe and you got saved by the Ultramarines, even if I noticed some people are critical of the Ultramarines, I get it. But if you saw the Ultramarines, you'd be like, oh, thank goodness. But at the same time, too, I would be afraid. Like, oh, my God, these giants, who are they?
Chain swords slashed, power fists crunched, and combat knives gouged, but they stole no life that Brother Arachnus' beloved bolter had not already taken. His younger brothers turned, helmed faces masking glares, but Brother Arachnus merely smiled into his mask and shrugged his shoulders. The only one who had not even bothered, who had clearly foreseen the example he had intended to set, was Brother Taslion, their tech marine. Several times the veteran that Arachnus himself was, but barely a space marine in his opinion. Even without his encompassing armor present, Arachnus doubted that any flesh could be seen remaining on Brother Taslion's metal body. Just as most of the brothers of the chapter had come to recognize the Emperor as the one true god, so too had Taslion and the other tech marines of the chapter come to worship the nearly profane concept of the machine god and all of the augmentation that came with it.
Okay, real quick. You need your tech marines, okay? You need your tech marines so that way, the machines are working. And hey, you always need your Jurisian. Shout out to anyone who remembers Hell's Reach. Because, Jurisian he's that guy I know I can rely on. Won't get too much of a conversation out of him, but you could rely on him. He's a real one.
They professed loyalty and faith in the chapter and the Emperor as well, in the form of the Omnissiah, but in truth, Brother Arachnus didn't trust it, and he wasn't the only one. Brother Taslion seemed to glide across the room on a writhing, coordinated swarm of metallic tendrils and ambidextrous arms, moving over the machine corpses and consoles of the bridge with ease as he made his way to the main computer, and the organic cyborg standing near it. Taslion crawled like a massive anthropod over the command throne of the ship, tendrils finding access panels, producing many varied inputs and output slots and patterns, testing them against every type of port and slot as his central, barely human form leered down upon the Xeno through glowing mechanical lenses. The throne sparked and chimed discordantly as several tendrils managed to connect to the machine. "Give me full access of this ship," the tech marine ordered the spider being, using its own language to do it. "I cannot. I do not know who you are or why you are here, but Count Dooku would kill me if I—" He got no further as several tendrils snapped out, surrounding the alien and enveloping him. The Xeno may have begged for its life, or may have stood firm, prepared to resist all. That was irrelevant, and the unverified conclusion of its actions didn't bother Brother Taslion in the slightest as his mechadendrites found the access and input slots around the alien admiral's collar. Its body went rigid as its mind was invaded. The tech marine could not help but feel a grudging respect for what he found. The technology was very clean, efficient. The mind-impulse connection between the mechanical limbs and the alien brain which controlled them was sublime, smooth, and afforded him easy, almost pleasurable access into the creature's thoughts.
Whoa.
That was not to say that it was without defenses, as several neural nets, firewalls, and proxy signals were deployed in rapid succession in an attempt to drive him out. But they barely slowed him down. After all, compared to the religious obsession of the defense rituals which guarded Adeptus Mechanicus systems of all kinds, the timeless, almost mindless force of Necron defense protocols, and the living and corrupting horror of data daemon counter-engrams, these defenses were trivial. And so, while the alien was technically not without defenses, it would be misleading to believe that he was anything but defenseless before the dissecting data drills.
I feel sorry for Admiral Trench. He was a villain in the Star Wars Clone Wars series, but going through this, it has to be a overwhelming sense of emotions. You see these giant superhumans in these battle armors, like destroying your bridge, destroying your forces, ripping everything apart, and then one of them confronts you and then starts penetrating into your mind through its technology. Warhammer 40K, it's a very frightening universe, and yes, I know that there are also frightening things in the Star Wars universe too, but let's just say, no matter how bad things get in this world, at least we're not in the 41st millennium. I think we can agree on that.
And cipher-sundering engrams which the Tech Marine countered with. In the end, it was only will and will alone which could stand against any true invasion of the mind, and the will of the spider being was a sly, pernicious, but subtle thing, and it crumpled in his metaphorical fist when confronted so directly and so mercilessly. And so, like a beast having brought down its wounded prey, Brother Taslian began to dissect and devour the information contained within the mind of the Xeno. It was called Trench, and it fought for the Confederacy of Independent Systems. The alien screamed, panic and horror spilling over its thoughts as it began to realize what was being done to it. Taslian wiped the disparate emotions away like a callous surgeon wiping gore off of his eye shield. It was here fighting the Galactic Republic, and it was about to retreat from this battle. It had set a bomb to explode, a bomb that would wipe out the planet and the combined armies beneath them. It struggled and kicked in the Marine's mental grasp, but he held it firm and tight as he forced the probes of his mind deeper, seeking the information he now needed. The bomb's deactivation code. Realizing his intention, the Xenos flailed one last time, using all of its strength and will. It struggled so hard, so violently, that it tore its own mind to shreds, and its neural mental circuits, never having been designed to maintain this kind of input and output strain, burnt out. But despite succeeding in depriving Brother Taslian of further tertiary data, the alien had failed to keep him from the deactivation code to the bomb. Still connected to the main console, he began eating and chewing his way through its security protocols and defenses. He had not gotten that access code, and even now he feared that, despite the ship's inability to resist him forever, it would resist him long enough to enable the bomb to go off. The Chapter Master had expressed a desire to conquer this world. Allowing the Xenos to destroy it ahead of their advance would not benefit the Omnissiah.
Right.
And then he found something interesting. An exterior connection. Another hacker doing something similar to what he was doing. And it was not merely a man or woman at a panel. It was a mind-linked unit, just like himself. He seized the individual violently and by surprise, penetrating deeply into its mental defenses before it even realized what was happening. And as Taslian closed his fingers around this being's thoughts, he was shocked, and for the first time in a long time, stunned by what he discovered. A human, a fellow human, certainly of a different culture, a different mindset, but undeniably a human. Here, among these machines, he squeezed and compelled the mentally constrained man to identify himself. He resisted and was gradually forced to capitulate. In a desperate mental gasp, the being named itself. "Echo! My name is Echo, and if you're not a separatist, then I am not your enemy!"
Oh my goodness. Well. I think we are seeing firsthand this story begin to expand into the Star Wars universe. I forgot about Echo. Isn't that great? When you see something, you forget about it, and then you learn all over again. That's the glorious thing about getting old. Every time you learn something new, something old escapes your head, and everything's brand new to you over and over again. Let's give a huge shout out to the narrator, a fan with too much time. And I wish him all the best in all future projects and endeavors and writings and storytelling. This is what you want to see out of content creators. And you're able to imagine the battlefield. I could see it playing out. And that's what I like about audio dramas. If someone's really narrating a story and it's well put together and they're articulating it perfect enough, you could see it all being played out. And of course, I saw it in the other videos too. But as time progresses on, because I've been reading the comments section below, people have been saying, hey, the story gets better. Oh, if you tuned out in the first season or you just were too busy, hey, make some time because the story keeps on growing, keeps on expanding, and it's becoming even better than before. So, wow. 10 out of 10. Awesome stuff. If you're not supporting A Fan Was Too Much Time, please be sure to check out their original video in the description box below. We do this for all the videos here for Chicago Reacts. Keep on winning, drink water, and the Emperor protects. I think we all know what side I'm on. We're going to win this fight. Star Wars, you're going down. But come on, we got the title right here. World Heavyweight Champions. We ain't giving it up. Simple as that. A 1, 2, 3. Take care, folks. I'm up out of here.